Madam Sergeant at Arms.
Madam Speaker, the members of the House of Representatives, please rise. My honor to present to you the Vermont Senate.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. The mics are all on and ready to go.
Okay, excellent. This joint assembly is convened pursuant to the provisions of JRS 3, which the clerk will now read.
JRS 3, joint resolution to provide for a joint assembly to hear the inaugural message of the governor. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the two houses meet in joint assembly on Thursday, January 9, 2025 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to receive the inaugural message of the governor.
Please rise and remain standing while the honorable justices of the Vermont Supreme Court are escorted into the chamber by the Sergeant at Arms. Please remain standing while Quebec's delegate to New England, Renee Sylvester, is escorted into the chamber by Major Casey Bell, Recruiting and Retention Battalion. Please remain standing while Canadian Consul General, represented by Lisa Carrier, is escorted into the chamber by Sergeant First Class Yulia Benson, 40th Army Band. Please remain standing while Secretary of State-elect Sarah Copeland Hansis and John Hansis are escorted into the chamber by Senior Master Sergeant Darren Adams, 158th Fighter Wing. Please remain standing while the Auditor of Accounts, represented by Deputy Auditor Tim Ash, is escorted into the chamber by Master Sergeant Kelly Burton, 158th Controller Light. Please remain standing while Treasurer-elect Michael Pichek, Gavin Bowles, and Ashlyn Doyon are escorted into the chamber by Major John Hayward, 168th Brigade Support Battalion. Please remain standing while Attorney General-elect Charity Clark, Lauren Yonda, and Robert McDougall are escorted into the chamber by Lieutenant Colonel Jason Boyd, 124th Regional Training Institute. Please remain standing while former Governor Peter E. Shumlin and Katie Hunt are escorted into the chamber by Chief Master Sergeant Peter Noble, Joint Forces Headquarters, Vermont National Guard. Please remain standing while former Governor and Mrs. James H. Douglas are escorted into the chamber by Master Sergeant Vladimir Sanon, 158th Fighter Wing. Please remain standing while former Governor Madeline M. Cunin and Mr. Robert Stafford are escorted into the chamber by Airman First Class Malachi Thompson, 158th Security Forces Squadron. Please remain standing while Marion Dubois, Diana McTeague Scott, Erica and Rachel Scott, and Kevin and Donna Scott are escorted into the chamber by Colonel Robert Beaudry, Joint Forces. The chair recognizes the senator from Chittenden Central District for the purpose of making a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that a committee of 6 be appointed to wait upon His Excellency Philip B. Scott, the governor-elect, and escort him into the chamber for the purpose of receiving his inaugural message.
The senator from Chittenden Central District has moved that a committee of 6 be appointed by the chair to wait upon His Excellency Philip B. Scott, the governor-elect, and escort him into the chamber for the purpose of receiving his inaugural message. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried. The chair appoints as members of this committee the senator from Chittenden Central District, Senator Baruth, the senator from Chittenden Southeast District, Senator Lyons, the senator from Caledonia District, Senator Beck, Representative Houghton, the member from Essex Junction, Representative McCoy, the member from Pulteney, Representative Logan, the member from Burlington. Will the committee please assemble and perform the duties assigned to it? The General Assembly may be at ease. Madam Sergeant at Arms.
Will the members kindly rise? It is my distinct honor to present to you the Governor of the State of Vermont, Phill B. Scott.
Welcome. Remember your first time here? I do. Please remain standing while the State Police Honor Guard post the colors.
Reason.
Please remain standing while Summer Booten of Fairfax, Vermont sings our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through
Please remain standing while the State Police Honor Guard leaves the chamber. Representative Kevin Coach Christie will now sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
The invocation will be given by the Most Reverend Father Leopold J. Bilodeau, retired pastor, St. Monica's Church of Barre, Vermont.
Someone once said that to he who sings prays twice. So I'd like you to join with me in this little ditty. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, source of all life, freedom, and authority, we come before you in solemn prayer on this inauguration day of Philip B. Scott, the 82nd Governor of Vermont, and John Rogers as the Lieutenant Governor. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon our state, from its shores to its green mountains, to its farms, towns, and cities. We ask that you continue to watch over this free state, its citizens, and its leaders, now and for many years to come. In a special way, we ask you to pour forth your blessings upon Governor Scott and Lieutenant Governor Rogers, as well as their wives and families, as they begin their special service to the state of Vermont. Bless them with wisdom, courage, and love as they take the prescribed oath and accept the heavy responsibilities of our state's highest offices. Keep them always faithful to their solemn pledge and enable them in your love to bear true allegiance to the state of Vermont and its Constitution by seeking the common good of all Vermont citizens and by joining hands with all our fellow citizens in the ongoing work of building a state that seeks to be a place of freedom, justice, and compassion for those most in need, especially the poor, the marginalized, and the unemployed. A state that cherishes and uses wisely the resources with which you have endowed our land. May Vermont, founded as a beacon of religious liberty and toleration, continue to uphold this most cherished freedom by welcoming in the public square faith and the values that flow from faith. Show us the path, Lord, to be builders of relationships in our state and its communities, so that we may bring forth harmony from our diversity. Bless our governor as he seeks to create cooperation among the government, business, service, and faith communities, so that together we may create opportunity for all our fellow citizens, especially the young people, to fulfill their God-given potential in loving homes and families and effective schools. Lead us, Lord, in finding ways to build trust in communities, to curb violence, and to protect the homeless, the destitute, the infirm, and the elderly. Give our governor, our legislators, and all those in government service an ever greater measure of understanding as they address the difficult problems that we are facing all. Most of all, Lord, give us joy and give us hope that we may be preserved in the freedom and unity in that peace that the world cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, may we be admitted to those which are eternal. We make this prayer in thy holy name. Amen.
The Chief Justice of the Vermont Supreme Court, the Honorable Paul L. Reiber, and the Governor's mom, Marion, will now come to the podium. The Chief Justice will now administer the oath of office to the Governor-elect.
Governor, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Philip B. Scott, do solemnly swear
I, Philip B. Scott, do solemnly swear
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and I will not, directly or indirectly,
do any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution
injurious to the Constitution
or government
or
thereof,
government thereof,
so help me
so
God.
help me God.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
so help me
so help
God.
me God.
I, Philip B. Scott,
I, Philip B. Scott,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of Governor
the office of Governor
for the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right
and therein do equal right
and justice to all
and
persons,
justice to all persons,
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and
and
ability,
ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
First, the oath of office will be administered to Michael Pichek.
Do I have the script somewhere? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michael S. Pichek,
I, Michael S. Pichek,
do declare and affirm
do declare and affirm
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not,
and that I will not,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
do any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution
injurious to the
or
Constitution
government thereof,
or government thereof,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I, Michael S. Pichek,
I, Michael S. Pichek,
do declare and affirm
do declare and affirm
that I will faithfully execute the office of State Treasurer
that I will faithfully execute the office of State
for
Treasurer
the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice
and will therein do equal right and justice
to all persons,
to all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law,
according to law,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I, this last one, I, Michael S. Pichek,
I, Michael S. Pichek,
do declare and affirm
do declare and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Governor.
I would let them sit there.
Seeing as we've been standing for so long, everybody can feel free to sit down. The oath of office will now be administered to Sarah Copeland Hansis.
I know. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sarah Copeland Hansis,
I, Sarah Copeland Hansis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will be true and faithful
that I will be true and faithful
to the state of Vermont,
to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not,
and that I will not,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution
injurious to the
or
Constitution
government thereof.
or government thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Sarah Copeland Hansis,
I, Sarah Copeland
do
Hansis,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of Secretary of State
the office of Secretary of State
for the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice
and will therein do equal right and justice
to all persons,
to all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Sarah Copeland Hansis,
I, Sarah Copeland
do
Hansis,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
The oath of office will now be administered to Charity Clark.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Charity R. Clark,
I, Charity R. Clark,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not,
and that I will not,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
do any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution,
injurious to the Constitution
or government thereof.
or government thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Charity R. Clark,
I, Charity R. Clark,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office
that I will faithfully execute the office
of Attorney General for the state of Vermont,
of Attorney General for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice
and will therein do equal right and justice
to all persons,
to all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Charity R. Clark,
I, Charity R. Clark,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Governor.
I haven't heard so much swearing since I left the farm. A second invocation will now be given by Rabbi David Fainsilber of the Jewish community of Greater Stowe, Vermont.
Coming together in the midst of winter's chill, help us, God of life, to feel the warmth among us, gathering by the civic hearth as we wish Mazel Tov from the Hebrew good luck to Governor Scott, the statewide officers, and the legislators in their positions serving Vermonters. Chei ha'olamim, Eternal living one, let me speak to you, O God, from my heart, according to my Jewish faith in this State House, before these honorable people, each filled with dignity and worth. Let us pause and look around at our fellow Vermonters, meeting each other's eyes, seeing one another as created in your image, each imbued with sacred purpose. As I consider my words before these elected officials, I keep thinking about some conversations with folks in Vermont, each of them also created in your image, conversations that are keeping me up at night and that call me to action. In recalling each person, I invite our elected officials and our fellow Vermonters to please join me in offering our prayers and commitment to them. Like the dear friend and colleague, a brilliant working mother, a community leader who told me of her employment uncertainty, who is living without a proper kitchen, and whose landlord neglects ongoing issues in her family's home. Or the wonderful mother, an incredible artist, who has recently attempted suicide, in part because she is anxious about losing her current housing. Or the couple who are both transgender, good neighborly people, wise people, who live afraid for their lives in the current climate. Or that family with young kids I spoke to after losing their home due to flooding, concerned it could happen again. And the seniors I pastor, who contributed to their families and this country, who are suffering from isolation. And the boy among too many, targeted with anti-Semitism in one of our local schools, and the teen who is dealing with racism, or the many I speak to about their struggles with mental health. Or that conversation that still plagues me, with the father who was sleeping in the car with his family through the Vermont winter, still trying to get his kids to school on time. God of the orphan, the widow, the stranger, the most vulnerable among us, you filled each one of us with a spark of life that cannot be extinguished. Each of us with intrinsic worth and vast potential. Each of us with many identities and a unique purpose to offer. Each person I shared about is created B'Tselem Elohim, in your divine image. I know this because each one is utterly incredible and inspiring. How despite challenges, each contributes to their communities with their uniqueness. Imagine how much more each person could offer of themselves if they weren't struggling to survive. What a gift to their families, Vermont, and the world if they had the support to thrive to their fullest potential. As we say in our weekly prayers in our congregation, O God, bless our diverse inhabitants equally in the light of your presence, that we might build a society based upon compassion, justice, and opportunity for all. Compassionate God, may Governor Scott and all these lawmakers and their families lead lives of meaning and value, affirming each day the sacred purpose in their governing. Help our lawmakers to know the power in their words and deeds. Imbue them with dignity, that they might help to build a society that affirms the worth and potential of all. One conversation, one deed, and one legislation at a time. Guide them to see their fellow citizens and all those who dwell here as neighbors and friends, cultivating circles of care so everyone feels supported. Lead them into their communities to ask what keeps Vermonters up at night, actively seeking the voices of the voiceless. And joining Vermonters together as one sacred, diverse tapestry, may you, our political leaders, in relationship with community leaders and all those you serve, model a cooperative way forward for our painfully fractured country and for our broken yet beautiful world. Across Vermont and beyond, may we all come to know, as the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Thank you for this humbling opportunity to stand before you. I appreciate each of you and your service to others. And so let me end with a traditional prayer to God upon new and renewed commitments at this inaugural ceremony and for this next term, and gratitude for our already abundant blessings. So if you know the Shehechianu blessing in the Hebrew, please join in, followed by the English. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, breath of life, guide of the universe, who brings us life and sustains our every breath, and who has brought us to this auspicious, sacred moment. And let us say, Amen.
Patty Casey will now sing These Green Mountains.
green hills and silver waters are my home. They belong to me and to all of her sons and daughters. May they be strong and forever free, and let us live to protect her beauty and look with pride on the golden dome. They say home is where the heart is. These green mountains are my home. These green mountains are my home.
It is now my distinct honor to present to you the Governor of the State of Vermont, the Honorable Philip B. Scott.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Please. Mr. President, Madam Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, members of the General Assembly, honored guests, and fellow Vermonters. I'm honored to have earned the trust and support of voters to serve once again as governor. It's great to have former governors, Shumlin, Cunin, and Douglas with us today. And I just saw Governor Douglas leave. Now, he said it was nothing personal, nothing to do with anything I'm about to say, but he's got a flight to catch. So, and at least that's his story. I'm not sure. We'll see. I want to thank my wife, Diana, my daughters, Erica and Rachel, my mom, and my family and friends for their continued understanding of the day-to-day challenges and demands of this job. And that goes for your families as well. Public service is rewarding, but consuming, with a lot of time spent away from home. This session, when our work gets difficult and the days grow longer, which they will, let's remember the hundreds of men and women in our National Guard who are away from their families and far from home. A large number of them were deployed this past week. In fact, last night, I met with a group that was leaving and assured them we would do our very best to take care of their families while they focused on their mission. We're joined today by General Knight and other members of the Guard, so I'd like to ask them and anyone here who has served in the military to rise and be recognized. I also want to acknowledge former legislators we've lost over the last year, who I had the privilege of serving with over my 24 years in this building. Bill Keogh, Kurt McCormick, Dick Sears, and Don Turner. And of course, there was my former seatmate, Bill Doyle, and my dear, dear friend and mentor. Dick Mazza, all respected and greatly missed. Between Senators Doyle and Mazza, they served 90 years in this legislature. One a Republican, the other a Democrat. But they had something in common. It had nothing to do with power or the influence earned in the hallways of the State House. They were both successful because their constituents back home trusted them to do the right thing and not fall into the trap of red versus blue, trusted them to put the people they represented first. See, they understood from the start that their job was to bring the perspective of their communities to the State House, not the other way around. They knew it wasn't legislators in this building who elected and re-elected them over those 90 years. So they worked for their constituents, their neighbors, and the folks who turned to them for help. When you think about it, that's really what being a legislator is all about. That's the job. Listening to your constituents and being a voice for those back home is essential, especially for those of you from cities, towns, and villages who feel left behind and want a seat at the table. There's no doubt many communities, businesses, and families are struggling, but it's not hard to see that Northwest Vermont is doing better than all the others. And it's not to say this region doesn't have challenges, but overall, it's where you see a lower percentage of kids in poverty, lower energy costs, higher median incomes, higher home values, and more new housing being built. And while we're desperate for workers across the state, the size of the workforce in Chittenden and Franklin counties is the highest it's been in recent history. But as the rest of the state struggles to catch up, they carry the same burden of increasing taxes and fees and navigate the same complicated mandates and regulations. And regardless of how well-intentioned these policies are, they're expensive and require resources that places like Burlington, Shelburne, and Williston may have, but small towns like Chelsea, Lunenburg, Peacham, Plainfield, and even Rutland, Newport, or Brattleboro do not. Too many bills are passed without considering the impact on these communities. Let me read a vote explanation from former Essex Caledonia Representative Terry Lynn Williams, which she gave last year in tears. She said, "Don't come up to me today and ask me how I am. The answer is, I'm sick, and I'm afraid, and I'm defeated, and angry, and sad. There you have it. Don't ask, because you have no idea or don't care what you're doing to my county and the other 70% of Vermont." Now, you may not agree with what she said, but we can't ignore how she feels. And she's not alone. 2 years ago, I shared the story of a somewhat angry guy from Essex County, and that's not you, Senator Ingalls. He confronted me while I was up in the Northeast Kingdom saying, "We're crushing him," and that Montpelier couldn't care less about what they did to folks like him in places like Island Pond. Now, I realize many of you go back home and face constituents with these same concerns and challenges, where your workforce and student enrollment has been declining for years. or your select board doesn't have the time or resources to apply for complicated grants, or your school board is struggling and your community needs jobs and a better economy. So if any of this resonates with you, here's something to think about. There are 17 senators and 83 House members who represent these left-behind communities, which means if you ignore party labels, you actually have the majority here. So let's work together to pass bills that fix the problems that matter most to your constituents and set aside the ones that don't. Let's put our communities above all else, reset the playing field so it's fair and benefits all of Vermont. Now, let me ask you to think about a time when you're hunting, mountain biking, driving, or on a hike, and you've gotten turned around. You somehow got off the trail, took a wrong turn. It starts to get dark, and it hits you. I went the wrong way. When that happens to me, I stop, get my bearings, and get back on course. But when it comes to politics, I know it can be hard to admit when you've gone down the wrong path and need to turn around. But we're not here to worry about egos. We're here to do what Vermonters need. And they just sent a very clear message. They think we're off course. For my first 6 years as governor, we built budgets that funded our needs, made new investments, and stabilized the state's finances, all without asking Vermonters for more. This common sense approach led to historic surpluses, so we can invest in the initiatives we cared about without raising taxes. It wasn't always easy, but in the end, we were able to come to an agreement. But last biennium, things changed, and the legislature didn't have to compromise. So they built and passed budgets that met their wants, and then raised taxes and fees as necessary to pay for them. In response, Vermonters told us loudly and clearly, they expect us to get back on course, to spend within their means, and above all else, make Vermont more affordable for them. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to Travis, a Harwood alum and Moortown resident who rushed from work to a public meeting so he could tell whoever would listen, I don't live here, I survive here. He's had enough. His taxes and his homeowner's insurance has doubled. His hands at that very moment were bleeding from the 14-hour day he just worked, a schedule that's crushing him. He said, I'm sick of all this ridiculous spending and the cost of everything doubling every year. I can't handle it anymore. I'm 46. I don't know if I'm going to see anything older than that here in Vermont. Now remember his age because I'll come back to it. He ended his comments with a simple message. It's too expensive. Straighten it out, figure it out, and come up with a better system because the taxpayers are sick of it. And that, I believe, gets to the heart of the issue. Because he didn't say slash and burn the budget. He said do it better. In so many areas, I share your goals. Where we often disagree is how we get there and at what pace. As I've said, just throwing more money at problems hasn't equaled success. Not in education, state colleges, housing, homelessness, and other areas where we funded but haven't fixed the underlying structural issues. Without fixing the holes we're in, they just keep getting bigger, and the hard-earned money of taxpayers like Travis is squandered. So this year, I'm asking you to join me, to listen to those who sent us here. Think about what they can afford and what they need, and give everyone the chance to not just survive, but thrive. There's no doubt the root cause of our challenges is demographics, especially the size of our working class and number of students, which has been shrinking for decades. I know some look at recent data showing a population increase and think we've solved the problem. Well, while it's good news, looking at total population doesn't tell the whole story. What does are the numbers 14, 28, and 48. According to the Joint Fiscal Office, from 2010 to 2022 alone, we had 14,000 fewer Vermonters under the age of 18, 28,000 fewer age 40 to 54, which is prime working age, Travis's age, and 48,000 more over the age of 65. And here's why this matters. Because it means fewer kids in our schools, or we're still paying for the system built for tens of thousands more students. It leads to fewer high school graduates, which means less enrolling in our state colleges or replacing retirees in the workforce. It means fewer in the trades to build the infrastructure and housing we need. Fewer to work at child care centers and healthcare offices, fewer volunteering for your local fire department, fewer joining your police force, fewer teachers and bus drivers, and fewer to take care of loved ones in our long-term care facilities. It also means fewer workers generating state revenue, and no one to fill the jobs employers need to survive or grow. All of it means less revenue for services to support the 48,000 more seniors we have, and less to fund a safety net for the most vulnerable. With fewer to pay for the growing burden of taxes and fees, education, utilities, and healthcare, Vermont becomes less and less affordable for those still here. And as competition for a limited workforce pushes wages up, everything is getting more expensive. Meanwhile, it gets harder to attract the people we need because our reputation as one of the highest taxed and most expensive states isn't exactly a great marketing strategy. It's clear you cannot separate affordability and demographics, so both need to be at the center of all we do. As I say all the time, we need more taxpayers, not more taxes. Housing is a great place to start. We know mortgages and rent are unaffordable for many. The costs and a shortage of units drives people out of Vermont and prevents families and workers from moving here. To me, the issue is obvious, and its solution relies on a basic economic principle: supply and demand. According to the Housing Needs Assessment, it will take 7,200 homes just to break even. And if we want to grow the workforce beyond what we have today, we need over 8,000 homes a year for the next 5 years. But our current rate is about 2,300. Now, that's an improvement over the 1,600 a year we saw over the previous decade, but it's nowhere near enough. So this session is crucial. We pass an actual housing bill focused on 4 strategies. First, let's strengthen our foundation with infrastructure for housing and flood recovery, not just with funding, but with a creative expansion of our successful TIF program. Second, we can give a helping hand to neglected communities by continuing to transform dilapidated houses into homes and economic opportunity. Third, we need more people investing in and revitalizing working-class neighborhoods. So let's continue to grow creative programs like VHIP and help more mom-and-pop investors be part of the solution. And fourth, if this is truly the crisis we all know it is, let's treat it like one. In order to make real progress, we've got to address our appeals process, which has been abused for far too long. And we have a lot more work to do on last year's land use bill, like expanding the Act 250 exemptions currently provided to a select few and giving rural communities a seat at the table so they too have an opportunity to thrive and grow. As one national housing expert recently put it, it's long past time to legalize housing. More housing plays an important role for another key challenge, education. As you well know, last year bills went up 14% on average, and as high as 38%. And if this year's projected rate goes into effect, education property tax will have increased 33% in just 3 years. And that's only property taxes, which for good reason has received a lot of attention. But what's not as obvious is all that's been added to the Ed Fund from other sources. 100% of our sales and use tax, about $600 million a year, goes into the Ed Fund. So does a third of our purchase and use tax, and a quarter of our rooms and meals tax, as well as 100% of the new short-term rental surcharge, and all lottery proceeds. And at times, we bought down rates with general fund money that could have gone to housing, human services, climate mitigation, public safety, and so much more. So when we tell ourselves that we pay for education with property taxes, that's not the whole story, because over a third, about $800 million, comes from other sources. Since I took office, the education fund has gone from $1.6 billion to an astounding $2.3 billion and climbing. We're one of the top education spenders in the nation. Yet, in too many districts, teachers aren't paid enough. Administrators are tied up in bureaucracy. Schools have too much empty space, and many are in disrepair. And most importantly, our kids aren't seeing the best outcomes. With what we're spending, we should not be in the middle of the pack on any educational scorecard. And our kids should all be at grade level in reading and math. But in some grades, less than half hit the mark. While educators, administrators, parents, and kids are doing their very best to make things work, the statewide system is broken and failing them. So, what's causing the problem? First, it's the way we pay for it, the funding formula. 48 states set the amount they will spend on education each year. Vermont does not. Here, every school budget is set by school boards. And if local voters pass it, the state is required to pay it, no matter how much it costs. Then the state sets the property tax rate using the CLA, grand list, pupil weights, and a bunch of other complicated stuff that few understand. And it's typically done weeks after budgets pass and months after they're built. So when school boards and voters make their decisions, few know the impact on their property taxes. We all know there are some communities whose taxpayers can't afford to pay more. So they keep their spending low in hopes of smaller tax increases. But too often, the communities that have more can afford more, so they spend more. And those higher spenders can actually increase the rates of those whose kids and teachers are getting less. Next, we need to take a hard look at how we govern and administer education. Put simply, we have a lot of buildings, classrooms, adults, and layers of bureaucracy, but fewer and fewer kids and taxpayers. Today, we have 83,500 pre-K through 12 students paid for by the Ed Fund. For the 80,000 who are in public schools, we have 52 supervisory unions, 119 districts, and 287 individual schools. We also have among the very smallest class sizes in schools in the nation, and the very lowest student-to-teacher and student-to-staff ratios. Now, some may think this is a good thing, and maybe it is. But the evidence shows that many high-performing schools throughout the country are larger, with bigger classes and higher ratios. The bottom line is, our system is out of scale and very expensive. And as obvious as these challenges are, we haven't been able to fix it. Efforts like Act 68, Act 46, and Act 127 have fallen short because they tried to tinker with an existing structure that simply isn't working well. So let's have the courage to fix the entire system, to make it work better for all kids and give them more opportunities from cradle to career. With my budget in 2 weeks, we'll share our full proposal to improve the quality, equity, and sustainability of the pre-K through 12 system in Vermont. With those three principles and the mandate voters gave us in November, we'll propose a multi-year plan to transform education. First, it will include an entirely new student-centered funding formula to provide more and better opportunities for kids and get costs under control. Second, we'll propose a new, simpler governance structure so we can deliver better and more equal education across communities. Third, we'll provide school boards and administrators with support and guardrails to reduce cost pressures. Finally, we know Vermonters can't afford to pay more. So if school boards contain spending growth to the projected level, my budget will lower the impact of this year's increase with a goal to eliminate it. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. None of this will be easy. And I'm sure we'll hear some of the same hesitations and concerns of the past. Here's a few you might remember. We need some schools to consolidate or close, but not our school. We need lower costs, but we won't share a teacher or principal. We need efficiency, but we want our own school board. We need pay equity, but we want our own employee contract. We need the state's help, but don't mess with local control. All these concerns are more about adults than students. And failing to fix this problem is failing our kids. So let's be bold. Let's be the ones who make the difficult decisions to move towards the real change the system needs and our kids deserve. For years, I've said, if I gave you $2.3 billion to educate 83,500 students, it would look far different than what we have today. This session, we have the rare opportunity to not only make our system more affordable for taxpayers, but also improve the quality of education for all kids, no matter their challenges or where they live. And we owe it to everyone to seize the moment and be brave together. There are no silver bullets, no simple solutions to any of this. But in a state with so many crises, from demographics and workforce to public safety and disaster resiliency, to affordability of government, healthcare, education, and the cost of living and doing business, we need to start somewhere. I believe prioritizing housing and education in a way that makes Vermont more affordable, not less, is how we make the biggest gains. In the coming weeks, we'll talk about how to stabilize our healthcare system, share proposals to improve public safety, strengthen communities, and support climate change policy that's achievable and affordable. So we'll be juggling a lot of issues, but it's more important than ever to prioritize and stay focused on the fundamentals that matter most to Vermonters. In a few short months, I'll be standing right here again as we adjourn the first half of the biennium. Those of you who have been around a while know our time together will be gone in a flash. So, on that day, what is it you want to have done for your community? What priorities of theirs will you have addressed? I can promise you my efforts, my focus, and those of my entire administration will be squarely on solving the problems Vermonters sent me and all of you here to solve. Creating a high-quality, equitable, and sustainable education system. Pushing for regulatory changes to legalize housing. And making sure whatever we do, we keep affordability for everyone our top priority. Vermonters asked us very clearly to separate our wants from our needs and to fix, not just fund, issues that have a major impact on their lives. Now, I know this is your process, and I know what's taken up this session, and whether we make progress on these issues or not is in your hands. So I'm asking each of you to think about what Vermonters will say about our work at the end of the session, to use the time between now and adjournment wisely, to prioritize the issues and perspectives of your constituents, and make sure the concerns of your communities are heard. The good news is we've shown what state government can do to solve problems and help people. We, all of us, saw it during the pandemic, and I often think back to what it took to build that response. Long days, nights, and weekends that spanned months and then years. But even with all the uncertainty, with all the loss, the hardship, difficult decisions, and tough calls, we got through it. And with the federal aid that came our way in the aftermath, we, all of us, strengthened 246 water treatment systems, supported over 600 businesses, created nearly 2,000 homes, protected 3,500 acres with climate change mitigation projects, and improved broadband for over 100,000 households and businesses. And this money is still funding projects, so there's more to come. We've had some success on a smaller scale as well. A little over a year ago, there was an idea to fold a team from the Agency of Transportation, the folks who build things, into our housing team to make more units available quickly and affordably. When floodwaters damaged dozens of homes beyond repair for the second year in a row, this group stepped up to say, we can help. And in a show of true bipartisanship, the E-Board transferred $7 million to get them started. In a matter of months, they've improved 34 empty lots and placed 32 mobile homes with 5 already under contract for purchase. And that's just one example. Here are a few more. We've welcomed over 1,000 refugees in the last 3 years, and will continue. And we're going to continue to do our part. While we're not claiming victory, overdose and suicide deaths are trending downward. So are highway fatalities and crashes. Since October of 21, state funding for brownfields has cleaned up 42 contaminated sites, making way for over 700 new homes, adding economic value for communities after years of being an eyesore. Since 2020, our VHIP investments have brought 500 affordable apartments online, with almost 500 more under construction. As you recall, the average grant is about $36,000, which is a bargain in today's market. State parks welcomed over 1 million visitors this year, one of our best years ever, despite the flooding. VOREC, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Collaborative, is paying off, contributing $2.1 billion to our economy in 2023. This puts us second in the nation after Hawaii. We've issued hundreds of rays of kindness, recognizing Vermonters for their everyday good deeds, which includes Mr. G, a teacher in Northfield who's here today, for his Walking Wednesday group that's been connecting students to exercise in their community for years. To better serve Vermonters, we've started the long overdue process of modernizing our 55-year-old unemployment IT infrastructure. We've completed major projects like the 1,000-foot runway expansion at the Franklin County Airport, which, coupled with the expansion of water and sewer, which we did, will make Highgate and an economic hub. We brought train service from Burlington to New York City after 2 decades of waiting. But that's nothing compared to another huge accomplishment in transportation. Because this year, we had just one truck stuck in Smuggler's Notch. Now, if we can go from as many as 12 stuckages down to 1, we should be able to do almost anything. Kidding aside, all across the state, there are good things happening, large and small, every single day. Last year, I talked about the countless Vermonters leading by example to support their communities in good times and bad. It's something we saw in the summer of '23 and again in '24 when flood waters ravaged the state. And Vermonters tapped into the same stubborn sense of community to once again help their neighbors muck out and clean up. But it's not just about lending a hand. It's the genuine concern for others, the selflessness that sets us apart. About a month after this year's flood, me and my team were in Lindenville, talking with the town about their many challenges. With back-to-back floods, the local teams were exhausted. The NEK's 2-person long-term recovery group was struggling to keep up with all the need. The select board was piecing together funding to cover costs, and they were all spread too thin. But what struck me, and has stuck with me, was something one of the local homeowners said. Carrie and her husband Nathan gave us a glimpse of life on Brook Road, which along with Red Village Road, saw some of the worst damage and left many, them included, on an island in their own homes. Since they couldn't drive in or out, they had to walk one kid up the road and the other down to get them to school. Family members were carrying in groceries on foot. And as their generator was running low, they were trying to figure out how to get fuel. But Carrie wasn't sharing this story to complain. Her point, her concern, was not about her family or even the challenges of her town. She said, I'm just worried about the folks up in Kirby. Because even with all Lyndon's struggles, she knew they had more resources than their smaller neighbor. This is the selflessness. This is a stubborn sense of community that inspires me to do the work to make the lives of these Vermonters and all Vermonters easier and better every day. My friends, whether it's putting the needs of your neighbors ahead of your own significant challenges, leaving your family for months to protect democracy around the world, or being a trusted and honest voice for your community over decades, the examples are there for us. We just need to learn from them. This year, once again, we've been asked to step up to solve big problems and help people. And there's no doubt our challenges are great. But if we meet them head on, accept reality, but refuse to settle for it, I know when this session comes to a close, we'll be able to go back to our communities with our heads held high, proud of the work we did here. We'll go home with a renewed sense of duty and hope of the brighter future that all Vermonters deserve. That's what they asked us to do. And we cannot, and we must not let them down.
The benediction will be given by the Reverend Robert A. Potter, Senior Minister, Peacham Congregational Church.
Leave now, I'll see you go. Ministers are sometimes accused of talking down to their congregation. Truly, we are here on the same level, except for the guys behind us. I asked Scott Peck one day, why does he want to be a senator instead of a representative? And he said, well, I want to sit up there in one of those big red chairs. That's not true. I made that up, but I thought it was Jimmy Carter would have us be truthful above all things today. I had an awful fall yesterday, and my back and legs are, yeah. But my doctor said, sit up, don't shut up, and keep talking. And I wanted to be here, just as all of you do, because of our love and respect for the governor, and indeed for what we're trying to do, you do together. I've been thinking, though, if I get a little lightheaded if I stand up, so they made me sit down here instead of going to the podium. But the great benefit of being down here, even though I can't believe I'd ever turn my back on the governor, is that if I faint before I get through this, I'll fall into the governor's mother's arms. She's a dear friend of many years, so she'll understand, won't she? I want to thank my son, my wife of 67 years. And I'm about to be 90 years old, so I guess I have a right to fall apart. And my son, Jeffrey, Dr. Jeffrey, who is the pastor of Old First Church in St. Johnsbury. I think it was a humorous dream. Now the text. And I'll try to stick to it. When I conversed with my longtime friend, the governor, I said, Phil, you cannot afford, and he leaned in, of course, at the very words, you cannot afford not to have me give the benediction at your inauguration. It won't cost the state or a taxpayer a penny. Except for me. Unless we lose our sense of humor amidst enormous challenges and think that only one party is concerned about cost. Let me remind you that a few years ago, protesters, 100 of them, as I remember, shouted from the balcony during my benediction. This is my 7th. We want a single-payer system. And the governor at the time was a Democrat. Can you imagine a Democrat saying we can't afford it? Now, those are not my words. I've just come from the town dump. Well, not just, but. And they told me which party to vote for. And I said, no thanks. And they sort of backhanded me and said, get out of here. It's very humbling to be thrown out of the town dump. But maybe that's what we need to do. Because no party has obviously a corner on truth, and we know that. I also come here on a day when we honor two great Americans, Jimmy Carter and Martin Luther King, in a few days. And I thought it might be helpful for me to remind you of my long personal ties with Martin Luther King. We did a number of things together over the years. Most recently, we shared a graduation stage. And he gave a great speech on the need for having a tough mind and a tender heart. A tough mind and a tender heart. And afterwards, he said to me he really preferred to give the benediction because obviously I had so much fun doing it. But also, he liked giving the last word. And so do I. On the road from Burke to Island Pond, there's a park-like clearing amidst a vast wooded wilderness. I passed it many times, and one day I decided to stop. It has a moat perfectly and gated with a high granite monument, no doubt from Mary, topped by a large plaque which says, on this site in the year 1857, absolutely nothing happened. Let no plaque ever be put on the side of this building. We have come here today, dear friends, perhaps from old cow paths and old logging roads by the river, honoring those who have come before us, through valleys that give us our values and our vision, and over mountains that give us our meaning and sense of the marvelous. In this land we so love, we have come to do the purpose of the people. We come with the agricultural goddess above us, that same old symbol of sacred earth and serious hands, of our history and our hope and our hard work. And it is wise that we give her renewed life with our vitality and our vibrance, and never giving up in spite of the enormous challenges that we obviously face. And then also above us is that great motto, freedom and unity, reminding us to hold fast to what lasts among the highest values ever revealed to humankind. In a wild, weary, yet wonderful world, somewhat fearful of freedom in a disunited United States, we come today, don't we, to pledge to our people to serve the common good with uncommon greatness. We can do that because we're Vermonters. We know how. But as Martin Luther King said in that speech, you just gotta do it. Funny this, we're going home. Way up in the land of Canaan, Vermont, near where I recently served the Church of the Great North Woods, I found a mountain called Monadnock, Indian for a mountain that stands alone. Mountain that stands alone. Magnificent for a mountain, but not for you and me. In Phil's first inaugural address, he told us that his father died when he was 11. My mother died when I was 11. We knew then and we know now that we do not stand alone. No one in this room got to where we are today by standing alone. No one. Not today, not tomorrow, never. So on our way home tonight, or any night on the long, dark nights of a Vermont winter, remember this, dearly beloved, remember this. Sometimes, somehow, somewhere, somebody loves us. Somebody loves us. May we, knowing that love, may we have the courage to carry on. Carry on. Carry on. Carry on, Governor. We love you. We do. That's the last word.
Sorry, I'm a little slow to the draw. Will the joint assembly please remain standing? And will the committee please reassemble and escort the governor from the chamber? Please remain standing. Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort the Honorable Justices of the Vermont Supreme Court from the chamber? Please remain standing while the family of the Governor Scott is escorted from the chamber. Please remain standing. Will the National Guard please escort our distinguished guest from the well of the House? There being no further business, I do hereby declare this joint assembly dissolved.